Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 6 of What If Deku Had a Blazer Quirk. Also check out the playlists that I have created on this channel. But anyways, hope you guys enjoy. Class 1A heard President Mike shout through the intercoms. Class 1A head onto the stage. The sports festival is about to begin. Everyone left the locker room, and once they were walking through the tunnel, they all heard cheering. The redhead looked over at the blonde. Bakugo, are you feeling nervous as well? However, he just scoffed. You will have to get used to this kind of stuff. He then grinned at Kirishima. Once we become pros, that is. Kirishima grinned and nodded. But that's when Momo spoke up to the class. We all should get going. They were all just standing at the edge of the hallway. Izuku along with his class walked ahead and were standing next to their sister class 1B. And that's when a new voice could be heard throughout the stage, and everyone glanced into the direction of the new voice, and it was the pro hero Midnight. Is she allowed to wear that? One of the students muttered. And that's when Mineta spoke up. The hero course is the best. But that just earned him a smack from Jiro. All the while Izuku looked up at the stands and something unusual caught his eye. He activated perfect vision and looked up towards the executive area. There he saw his parents. Izuku grit his teeth and clenched his fist with him thinking, I will show you how much I have improved. Stella was standing next to him and she looked at Izuku in worry. Why does he seem so worked up? But that's when Izuku heard someone calling his name. Kurogane, please come up and give a speech. Izuku just nodded and walked up to the heroine and took the mic. He then looked at the students and back at the crowd and spoke. Everyone should try their best and go for number 1. He then handed the mic back to Midnight as the crowd were cheering, but the students just looked at him confused. With all of them thinking, how was that a speech? Midnight just spoke up once again. Well, that was short, but anyways, let's get this festival started. She then pressed a button and a wheel appeared. The heroine spun the wheel and it landed on obstacle race. Alright everyone, this race will be a 4 kilometers race around the stadium. Now go to the hallway over there and wait for President Nick's signal to start. Once all of the students were in said tunnel, Izuku noticed how narrow it was. Along with that, all of the people that were around him will make it hard to get past through the tunnel. He tried to go close to the front, but President Mike shouted, start. And all of the students tried to make their way out of the tunnel, with our protagonist shouting, come to me in Tatsu. He then rushed forward and put his hand up towards the students in front of him. Alright, I'm sorry, but this is a race, so no hard feelings. Our protagonist moved all of the students that were in front of him and pushed them into a wall. But as he passed them, he let his hold on them go, and he did this till he was close to the end of the tunnel. With Bakugo shouting, oh I let me go you extra. Izuku paid no attention to the blonde and he noticed that it got colder. He jumped up and dodged an ice attack from Todoroki. And in the same moment he broke out of the hold, and he rushed out of the hallway first, but the black-haired boy was close behind. Todoroki, seeing this, stomps his foot on the ground and tries to launch ice towards Izuku. But said boy just put his hand up and stopped the ice and ran around it, and he let go of his hold on the students behind him. With some of them complaining, but others just rushed out of the tunnel. Izuku looked up ahead and saw the 0-pointer. He also noticed that Todoroki was going to attack one of them, and our protagonist grinned. Then increased his speed and waited till the half and half boy froze the 0-pointer. And once Todoroki froze said robot, our protagonist rushed past Todoroki, now taking first place. He turned around and smirked at the irritation on Shoto's face. However, he glanced in front of him and noticed another 0-pointer. Izuku gripped his sword and jumped up towards the 0-pointer and sliced it in half. 7th Secret Sword Reiko. As he was falling, he used the robot as footing to jump further ahead. However, as he was mid-air, Todoroki launched a torrent of flames at the black-haired boy. Izuku, seeing this, put his hand forward once again and dispersed the flames. And once landed, he ran towards the other obstacle, but he was now in second place. Todoroki had overtook him when he was landing. With Izuku muttering, I can't maneuver well while I'm mid-air. He stood up and rushed forward towards Todoroki, and he heard explosions behind him. I'm surprised Bakugo isn't in first. Our protagonist kept running until he was on to the next obstacle, which was the fall, with him thinking I would be able to finish this race within a minute if I used Ito Shura, but I only can use it once. He sighed and noticed Tenya balancing himself onto the rope. Izuku smirked and jumped onto a rope and ran across it. And once he crossed it, he looked ahead and noticed that Todoroki stopped, and right next to him was Bakugo and Stella. He ran towards the minefield and activated perfect vision, and in that moment the three noticed Izuku and rushed after him. With Bakugo launching explosions at Izuku, who in turn just lifted his hand up and blocked the explosions, but that's when the blonde got smacked by a flame attack from Stella. Todoroki however launched a massive ice attack towards Izuku. Said boy looked below him and swung at the mines below him, and that moved him out of the way from the ice. But Todoroki wasn't done. While midair he tried to do the same thing he before, however Izuku just glanced around the boy and put pressure on all the mines near him, which made a smokescreen of sorts, which covered the whole field. But Izuku didn't want to run into a mine on accident, so he dispersed the smoke and ran towards the end of the field and in the spectators area. Izuku's father was looking at his son and scoffed. How was he able to get away from Whirlwind? He looked down at his phone and sent a message to an unknown number. But back to the race. The four had cleared the minefield and were making their way to the finish line. Bakugo launched an explosion towards Todoroki to try and slow him down, but the half-and-half boy just put up a ice wall that blocked the path forward. Seeing this, Bakugo was going to blast the ice, but Stella swung her sword forward and melted the ice. But that bought Todoroki enough time to make it through the tunnel and earn first place, with Izuku coming in second, Stella in third and Bakugo in fourth place. Which angered the blonde as he was punching the ground in rage. They then had to wait another 10 minutes for the other students to finish, and once they did, Midnight came up to the stage once again. Alright, the top 42 students will be able to qualify for the next event. She then pressed a button and the same wheel from earlier appeared, and she spun, in which it landed on Cavalry battle. She then continued, you will have to make a team of a maximum of 4 people, which will have 1 rider and at least 1 horse. And each student will know how many points they have through their placement in the obstacle race, which will increase until first place. Midnight smirked and pointed at Shoto, but first place is worth 10 million points. And individual point values will be added together, and that would be the total for the team, and they are displayed by this. As she finished speaking, she held up a headband. You will be able to steal the headbands of other students, but you can't make each other fall on purpose, or else the team would be disqualified. But if you lose your headband, you are not out. At least until the 30 minutes is up, but now everyone choose your teams. You will have 10 minutes to do so. And with that, everyone went to make their teams, and everyone was avoiding Todoroki, but some of class 1A went to him because they know how strong he is. Back with our protagonist, Stella walked up to him along with Achiko. Izuku, can we join your team? Said boy nodded and looked at Stella. I'm surprised you don't want to start your own team since you were third place. She just shook her head no. Well, I'd be more comfortable in a team with you, and Achiko just nodded her head. And Izuku felt someone tap him on the back, and he turned around and noticed Mina. Can I join your team as well? I wanted to join Bakugo's team, but I'd rather be in yours. Well, that's fine with me. But now we skip to the end of the 10 minutes when everyone chose their teams. Everyone was ready, and you can hear Present Mix's voice. Now let's go. Counting down to the brutal battle royal. And Midnight shouted start. Off the start, everyone went for Todoroki's team, while Izuku grabbed some of the headbands from class 1B. With Monoma trying to pick a fight with our protagonist, but in response he lifted his hand up towards him and pulled his headband off and brought it to himself. And with that he left that team alone, but that's when Achiko spoke up. Are we going for Todoroki's million points? However, Izuku looked over in their direction and shook his head. Right now, if we focus on him, that will leave us open for other attacks. He then looked ahead and noticed a kid with purple hair along with a classmate of his. On a hunch, Izuku lifted his hand towards Ojiro and pushed him a little. And with that said, boy looked around confused, but for good measure he took Shinso's headband, which annoyed the purple-haired boy. As Izuku was distracted, Tsuyu tried to grab the headband he just took, but our protagonist was able to see it at the last second, and that's when Stella launched a flame attack towards their team. She made sure to not burn the frog girl, and with the increase in temperature it made the girl bring her tongue back. Izuku sighed and looked towards Todoroki, and he noticed Bakugo trying to get the million-point headband. "Alright, we will be going for first place," Izuku stated. Stella looked over and nodded. "You don't have to worry about the ice, my dragon breath can melt it easily." Izuku nodded and looked at Mina and Ochako. "You two will help with support." The two agreed and they rushed over to Todoroki. However, Izuku noticed something and quickly moved his head to the side, and he dodged a hand that was floating in the air. He turned around and noticed Team Kendo. With Setsuna speaking up, "Wow, I didn't expect you to be able to dodge that." Izuku just scoffed and looked at her. "Well, it was quite easy to sense your attack coming." That in turn made Tokage mad. But that's when objects got sent towards them, and Izuku put his hand up and stopped the objects mid-air and glanced at the other girl on their team. However, the black-haired boy grinned and sent the objects back at the girls, and he looked down and noticed that mushrooms were popping out of nowhere. Seeing this, Mina melted some of the mushrooms with her acid, and Stella burned the rest of them. The mushrooms just kept coming, and having enough of this, our protagonist looked at Stella. "Can you launch your flame attack towards them?" "Alright." She then put her hand towards the ground and shouted, "Serve me Levitian." A torrent of flames appeared and she grabbed onto her sword. She then pointed said sword towards Kendo and shouted, "Pierce the blue sky, the flame of purgatory. Burn it all, Kalasarsho salamander." She launched her attack forward and it hit Team Kendo along with anyone else who was unfortunate enough to be behind her. Once the smoke cleared, half of the students were unconscious and Stella looked sheepish. "Oh crap, I may have put too much power into that." All the while Izuku and everyone else looked at her dumbfounded. "You know, when I said launch a flame towards them, I didn't mean everyone else with them. Well, at least we can go for first place now." But at that moment, President Mike shouted, "Time is up." That is the end of the cavalry battle. Izuku looked at her and smiled a bit at Stella pouting. But he jumped down from them and got her attention. Izuku smiled at the pink-haired girl. "Well, either way you did good." But Mina and Ochako looked at her in jealousy, with Mina thinking, "I helped out a lot too." Now we skip to 5 minutes later. Once everyone awoke, they were confused and some had to be treated from the burns. President Mike then called everyone back onto the stage and he spoke up. "Alright everyone, after that destructive finale, I will now be announcing the teams that will be going to the last event. Team Todoroki first place. Team Kurogane second place. Team Bakugo third place. And lastly Team Monoma." Izuku looked at the blonde and wondered how he got all those points back, and that's when he remembered his parents are here and he clenched his fist. So President Mike continued, "Until the final event we will have recreational games for 30 minutes, so everyone enjoy and have fun." Most of Class 1 participated in these games, but Izuku looked over at Aizawa, who was next to present Mike. With him thinking, "I already analyzed his quirk, so I should be able to copy it. Come to me in Tetsu." He then looked at his sword and activated Quirk Steel and switched out his telekinesis for erasure. With Izuku thinking, "I will have more use of this during the last event." He then walked away to grab some food at the stands, but he didn't notice someone watching him with a grin. Izuku walked to the hallway to exit the tunnel. Side note, this is the same area where Todoroki told Izuku about his past in canon. Anyways, back to the story. Before he walked out of the stadium, however, a black portal appeared behind Izuku. And a figure walked out. He then smiled and put his robotic hand forward and locked our protagonist in place. What the hell? He glanced behind him and was shocked. "Come to me in Tetsu." "Oh no you don't." He then moved his hand to the side and launched Izuku onto the side of the wall, making a crater on impact, and he did this multiple times trying to knock the boy out. Izuku coughed out blood and activated perfect vision. He then looked at Whirlwind and his hair went up. Along with that his eyes turned red and he could feel the hold on him vanish, and Izuku landed onto the floor. He looked up at Whirlwind and stood up. "Well, how about I cut off your other arm?" And as he said this he pointed his blade at the villain. That in turn made the villain scoff. However, he grinned. "And how about I kill that little girlfriend of yours? Wouldn't that be?" He had to dodge out of the way from Izuku's blade, and Whirlwind was able to kick Izuku to the ground. "I remember you being faster during our last fight, boy. "What are you getting weaker?" the villain mocked. However, with said boy he got up and got into another stance, 7th secret sword Reiko. He then appeared in front of Whirlwind and swung his sword towards the villain, with him shouting, "Maybe if you didn't cheap shot me." However, a portal appeared in front of the villain and Izuku fell right into it like an idiot. And Whirlwind just grinned and looked around, but shortly after went into the portal with him thinking, did he really fall for that? Back with the staff of UA. Nizu had noticed the fight between Izuku and Whirlwind and quickly called all of the pro heroes to go help him. But that's when creatures appeared out of a black liquid-looking thing and started to attack civilians. With some of the students and teachers noticing they looked like that creature at the USJ. The heroes noticed that they were not that strong, so they were able to easily defeat them. But by the time they were defeated, Izuku was already gone. Nizu looked back at the screen and muttered, so it was a distraction to get to young Kurogane. He then called off the sports festival, and over the intercoms you can hear all staff members report to Nizu's office immediately. But that is the end of this part. If you enjoyed this part, leave a like and subscribe. Also tell me in the comments on how this part had came out.